All right, guys, we're on a new chapter now. I believe we're on chapter 2. This one's called The Tyranny of Controls. Again, this is the main chapter title, and we have a little kind of preface. And then from the preface, we get into some small chapter. So we're just going to read all the way up to here. This one's called The Tyranny of Controls, chapter 2, Free to Choose by Milton Friedman. Chapter 2, The Tyranny of Controls. So for him, he's a real titular individual, so he likes titles. So for this chapter 2, for it to be the tyranny of controls, you kind of have a little insight to what this whole chapter is about. The tyranny of controls. In discussing tariffs and other restrictions on international trade in his Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith wrote, "What is prudence in the conduct of every private family can scarce be folly in that of a great kingdom. If a foreign country can supply us with a commodity cheaper than we ourselves can make it, better buy it of them with some part of the prudence of our own better buy it with some part of the produce of our own industry, employed in a way in which we have some advantage. In every country it always is and must be the interest of the great body of the people to buy whatever they want of those who sell it cheapest. The proposition is so very manifest that it seems ridiculous to take any pains to prove it, nor could it ever have been called in question had not the interested sophistry of merchants and manufacturers confounded the common sense of mankind. Their interest is, in this respect, directly opposite to that of the great body of the people. In every country, it always is and must be the interest of the great body of the people to buy whatever they want of those who sell it cheapest. The proposition is so very manifest that it seems ridiculous to take any pains to prove it, nor could it ever have been called in question had not the interested sophistry of merchants and the manufacturers confounded the common sense of mankind. Their interest is, in this respect, directly opposite to that of the great body of the people. So that was the words of Adam Smith. So now we're back to the author. These words are as true today as they were then. In domestic as well as foreign trade, it is in the interest of the great body of the people to buy from the cheapest source and to sell to the dearest. I don't agree with this. I think this is antiquated. This is speaking from a place as if the world is not violent, as if people don't want to take advantage, as if people don't have enemies, and yet interested sophistry, this is in quotes, has led to a bewildering proliferation of restrictions on what we may buy and sell, from whom we may buy and to whom we may sell, and on what terms, whom we may employ and to whom we may work for, where we may live, and what we may eat and drink. So proliferation. Proliferation. I just looked that up earlier. I'm reading another book. Proliferate. Increase rapidly in numbers. Reproduce rapidly. Has led to a bewildering increase of restrictions on what we may buy and sell. Adam Smith pointed to the interested sophistry of merchants and manufacturers. They may have been the chief culprits in his day. Today they have much company. Indeed, there was hardly one of us who was not engaged in interested sophistry in one area or another. In Pogo's immortal words, we have met the enemy and they is us. We rail against special interests, except when the special interests happen to be our own. Each of us knows that what is good for him is good for the country, so our special interest is different. We rail against special interests, except when the special interest happens to be our own. Each of us knows that what is good for him is good for the country, so our special interest is different. The end result is a maze of restraints and restrictions that make almost all of us worse off than we would be if they were all eliminated. We lose far more from measures that serve other special interests than we gain from measures that serve our special interests. We lose far more from measures that serve other special interests. We lose far more from measures that serve other special interests than we gain from measures that serve our special interests. The clearest example is in international trade. The clearest example is in international trade. The gains to some producers from tariffs and other restrictions are more than offset by the loss to other producers and especially to consumers in general. Free trade would not only promote our material welfare, it would also foster peace and harmony among nations and spur domestic competition. So I want to give an example about like modern day today. China wanted to build the biggest car. They have built the biggest car manufacturing plant in Mexico, but they stopped building because they're afraid Trump is going to become president and enact all these tariffs on China and no, actually on Mexico as well, because obviously Mexico and China are working together. And who are they going to sell those cars to? American, American people, because they got the money. It is often said, no. Sorry, excuse me. Controls on foreign trade extend to domestic trade. They become intertwined with every aspect of economic activity. Such controls have often been such controls have often been defended, particularly for underdeveloped countries, as essential to provide development and progress. A comparison of the experience of Japan after the Meiji Restoration in 1867 and of India after independence in 1947 tests this view. It suggests, as do other examples, that free trade at home and abroad is the best way that a poor country can promote the well-being of its citizens. The economic controls that we have proliferated, that we have increased, the economic controls that we have increased or proliferated in the United States in recent decades have not only restricted our freedom to use our economic resources, they have also affected our freedom of speech, of press, and of religion. He's talking about regulations. So tariffs are a good thing on our enemies when they want to take advantage of us. I agree with that. For poor people, it's a little different. Poor countries, underdeveloped, don't have a strong army or are not strong technologically. I see why they have to be a little more loose so they could get taken advantage of. But China's playing the long game, and them making a big ass power plant in Mexico. I don't know. We hope to have a good relationship with China. It's better to have good relationships with people, a peaceful world. Better to have a peaceful world.